Our virtual event today is Applying to Graduate School, Advice on How, Why, and When. Dr. Karen Panetta, 2019 IEEE-HKN President, will moderate a panel of experts who will discuss how, why, and when to apply to graduate school, what to look for in a program, and how to decide if it is right for you. If you would like to post on Facebook about this event, please use the hashtag the HKN Experience and HKNx2020. At this time, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Karen Panetta.
Hey everybody, I'm really happy to be here with you. I'm so glad that Ada Kappa Nu has decided to organize this because it is really an important thing for all of our students who are considering a future going back to school. Now, one of the things that's really important is not just making that decision to go back to school, but where, and understanding not just the application process, but what you should be looking for in your programs and how it's going to differ from your undergraduate programs. So I am a professor and dean at Tufts University in Massachusetts, and I run all the graduate programs. And at Tufts, I have 6 departments under me that are your traditional electrical, computer engineering, computer science, biomedical, the typical technical departments, but I also have an engineering management program through something called the Gordon Institute. And we also offer dual degrees and triple degrees based on, what your needs are. So today I have some great panelists with me, and we're all going to be talking about our programs. And the first one that we're going to introduce, you can move to the next slide, please. The first one I'd like to introduce is our representative from Marquette University. You move to the next slide, Stacy. Here we go. Tim Carter is the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at Marquette University, and Marquette is a longtime HKN supporter and has been very prominent at our HKN Student Leadership Conference. So I'm going to let Tim go ahead and talk about Marquette. And then we'll introduce the rest of our panelists as we move along. So thank you, Tim.
Well, thank you too, Karen. Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Carter, and I am the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions for Marquette University. I was kind of excited this year to go to San Diego, which was where it was supposed to be this year. But unfortunately, we're stuck in our own states doing a virtual presentation this year. But I am so glad to be here to talk with all of you undergraduate students. I am, like I said, the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions. My primary roles are recruiting STEM students as well as business students. So everybody that's interested in engineering, computer science, data science, as well as different business programs come to me for guidance. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Our next panelist, you can put up the slide for our next panelist. Our next panelist is our University of Michigan representative, Professor Heath Hoffman. And again, we're really excited to have the University of Michigan represented as well. So Professor Hoffman, if you wanted to give an introduction, that would be terrific.
Sure. Hi, everyone. As mentioned, my name is Heath Hoffman. I'm a professor in electrical and computer engineering at the University of Michigan, which is part of the electrical engineering and computer science department. I am also the associate chair of graduate affairs for ECE, which means I run the overall ECE grad program. I am very happy to be here. It would have been nice to be in San Diego, but I'm actually quite happy being at home too and not having to travel. But anyway, I look forward to chatting.
Okay. Our next university representative is we're going to be represented by Amy Sisson from Wentworth Institute of Technology, another one right here in Boston. So Amy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is Amy Sisson. I am the Director of Graduate Admissions at Wentworth Institute of Technology, which, as Karen mentioned, is in the heart of Boston, which you can see in this photo. Wentworth is a small institution with very hands-on STEM-focused programs. So we have about 8 graduate programs, though we're adding new ones frequently to that list, but very small and hands-on engineering, architecture, construction management, those types of programs.
Okay, thank you, Amy. And last but not least, our colleague Alexander Wiglinski from WPI, which is Worcester Polytechnic Institute, right here again in Massachusetts. Alex?
Thank you, Karen, and it's an honor to join yourself and my fellow panelists for this really important panel discussion. It's really exciting to talk about the application process to grad school. Just looking in the past, my own journey and stuff, I think there was some great sources on how to do this, like how to go through, things to do, what to do. But then some things I think I kind of fluked on, and I was lucky. I'm really happy how that process went and where I am today. And I think this panel discussion hopefully will answer some of the questions I had to guess or accidentally stumbled into. So. Alex Wiglinski, I'm a professor of electrical and computer engineering here at WPI. So Worcester is about 45 miles west of Boston. So again, there's this like very strong northeastern type of proximity to all the panelists here. So I've been at WPI for 13 years. I've been in academia after my PhD for 15. What I'm hoping to do in this presentation, I would be very happy to answer questions like, for instance, in this slide, things like, for instance, stuff you should be doing when thinking about graduate school. And you should always be like when you enter your undergrad studies, think, okay, what do I need to do in order to set out my professional development, my professional growth? Where should I be going? And ask yourself questions like, when do I reach out with prospective faculty? Doing homework about programs, graduate fellowships, really important graduate fellowships, and what I hope to do with my graduate degree once I get it. So these are things, and I'm hoping that I could be of some help during this panel to answer some of those questions.
Terrific. Thank you very much. So the first thing, before we even get started about the application process, let's all answer the question, why should we go to graduate school? What's so important about it? For me, I can tell you that I was working and my company would have paid for it. So that was my dad's way of saying, what, free education, you go. So that was one thing. But a lot of programs now are available remotely, or what we call hybrid mode, so that you can really do them from anywhere as well. So I think that's another thing. And we're all really working on making sure that we give you the same educational experience or better, because we're trying to compensate for the pandemic that we're in. So what I'd like to do is ask, starting again with our panelists, is to talk about, why graduate school? Why should a student even think about it this time? Why not just go out and get a job and make money? So let's go back to Tim. Tim, you want to start us out?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, you need to go to graduate school when you're ready. There are many people that do want to go out and start making money. They have some student loans to pay off. They have a job opportunity or 2 or 3. They want to take advantage of that and go out and get some work experience. And I certainly think there is some value to that. Some people do graduate school because they want to propel themselves quicker into leadership roles and into management roles within companies. And certainly you can do that with a graduate degree as well. Some people want to go in and dig deeper into a certain area of their field. As you remember, or as you are in your undergrad experience now, you're studying a lot of different subjects and across multiple disciplines. And you're getting a flavor of a little bit about everything, including your major. But what a grad program does is allows you to dig deeper into a particular subject matter. It tends to be a little bit more research focused. The coursework can be a little bit more intense. There's less test taking as far as multiple choice and true-false tests. There's going to be a lot more reading and writing. So it is going to take a little bit of your time and go when you're ready. That's the important thing. Some people are ready right out of undergrad. They don't want to lose that knowledge base that they've already have. some people want to go out and work first, and that's certainly fine.
There you go. Okay, and how about you, Heath?
Yes. Why would you want to go to graduate school? I guess my main answer to that would be that, technology, electrical engineering is evolving, at an exponential rate. There's just more and more to learn. And so perhaps, a few years ago, maybe, with a bachelor's degree, you could find a very interesting job. These days, the BS might not be enough to do the job that you would like to do. So if you're really interested in technology, getting that extra year or two of additional education can help go a long way. It can lead you to much better positions in industry, both in terms of what you'll be doing as a job, but also in terms of salary. And if you're really into technology, to the point where you think you'd like to get into R&D, most of those positions, particularly in academia, require a PhD.
Right.
And so, yeah.
That's a good point, because a lot of students are thinking, should I do a master's, should I do a PhD? And sometimes there's funding implications there, because a lot of people fund PhD programs, but getting financial aid for master's programs may be more challenging. Okay. Amy, how about you, Amy?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good reasons to go back and get your graduate degree. I think many students do it to take that next step in their career. Many students do it to kind of pivot in their career. So if you've done internships and things like that in a certain area, but you want to kind of branch out into a different area of interest, that's another reason to go back to school and get that extra credential. And really just to expand your horizons. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm in graduate school right now. I can't give it up. So some people just enjoy that experience of being in the classroom, and I think that's a good reason as well. I tell many students, being a graduate student right now, there's not a better time than now. I know Tim said, when you're ready, but during a pandemic when you can't socialize or do anything else, this is a good time also to get your graduate degree and have that next step and be that much more marketable when you go out to get your job.
Right. I want to capitalize on two things you said. One is, now a lot of students are saying, well, I want to wait for things to return to normal. And it's like, I don't think that, that's not the HKN way. It's like we know how to, pivot and move. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to adapt to, is being able to pivot, move. And the other thing, Amy, you mentioned, which I think is really critical, is students usually think, oh, I did a degree in electrical engineering, and therefore I have to do my master's, my PhD in electrical engineering. And because the disciplines are so interdisciplinary today, you can't switch. So, like at Tufts, I have a lot of students that will be biomed, go into electrical engineering, or everybody wants to do AI or computer science. So we have so many different programs now that allow you to jump. So don't pigeonhole yourself to think, well, I got a degree in this one field, that's where I have to apply for graduate school. Okay, Alex, do you want to answer
Sure.
the question too, Alex?
Yeah. No, I mean, So one of the roles I have within my department at WPI, in electrical and computer engineering department, is we have a BS-MS program. So our undergraduate students who do BS, they also can double count courses and also jump right into an MS degree. And what a lot of them, and just my own personal experience in the electrical and computer engineering world, like Heath mentioned it as well about the rapidly accelerating technological landscape. But what I'm finding is that the majority of my advisees either go straight into a master's degree, and a lot more that graduate and say, no, I'm not going to do grad school. I'm just going to go and work and just be happy with my BS. A lot of them come back and they ask for letters of recommendation to do an MS. It's almost to the point that the MS is almost like the minimum requirement to do, like, let's say, design work, the start of R&D, any sort of like the advanced engineering type of activities, because it provides the depth. Like an undergrad program is great. I'm going to take a little bit of microelectronic circuits. I'm going to take a little bit of computer engineering, computer architecture classes, maybe some signals and comms classes. But hey, the master's degree, I'm going to now learn how to, let's say I like communications, I'm going to learn how to theoretically derive bit error rates and stuff, and you go very deep. And those skill sets are kind of like, if you want to go like sort of differentiate yourself from other folks in your company, as well as have that level of expertise, that knowledge that the company says, wow, like, I think we could trust this person. He has a certain level of maturity, a certain amount of information that allows him to be dangerous, like in terms of like doing kind of like the more in-depth, detailed type of activities in the company. I think for PhD, again, like Heath mentioned it, it's like, which is perfect, is like if you're doing more R&D, you're not going to get paid more. Like if you go from BS to MS, the data, at least from what I've seen for ECE, is about a $12,000 difference per year in salary. I don't know what it is now, because you have several companies that are really driving up salaries in the ECE world. But a PhD, don't imagine, oh, a PhD is going to be infinitely higher. You go into a PhD, it's going to close some doors. It's going to open others, especially if you want to go into academia or very serious research positions. So there, it's not so much for the pay, but you become the world expert on a single thing, and that really puts you in a completely different sort of mode in terms of like career path.
Right, and when we do our HKN Pathways program, Pathways to Academia, one of the things that students don't realize is, unfortunately, in today's landscape, getting you want to academia, you need a postdoc, which means another 3 or 4 years of what I call purgatory, you know, of low paying. And sometimes it's heartbreaking to see that, you know, people in industry with a master's degree are doing way better than with a PhD. So it's really got to be, you know, an affair of the heart to really want to do that research. So we have some questions coming in, and one of the first things I think that everybody wants to know about is, you know, the role of GPA and GREs. So, you know, one of the things, because of COVID, we recognize that testing has been really difficult. And so, you know, like at my institution, at Tufts, we've gotten rid of the requirement for anyone with a U.S. undergraduate degree. So it doesn't mean even if you're not a U.S. citizen, you don't have to take GREs. So I'd like to ask, you know, each of our panelists, you know, how do your programs use GREs or GPA and the admissions process? So we'll start again with our first panelist.
Yes.
Let's go with them.
Well, the GRE has been a sensitive subject here. I don't know what it is about the College of Engineering at Marquette, but they love to see that quantitative score on a GRE, and some departments are reluctant to give that up. So some of our departments have gotten rid of the GRE, and some have not. If you're going into computer science or data science, they don't need the GRE, but some of our engineering programs do. And really what they do is they focus on that quantitative section of the GRE to see how you stack up maybe to other people who are in a similar situation as you. We do have a minimum GPA requirement of a 3.0 GPA, but we also look within the major that you're bringing to the table too, and how well you've done within your major. And they really need to be A's and B's. If we start seeing C's in your subject matter, in your major, that's a really big red flag. And if you are coming to the table with maybe a C or 2, that's something that you're going to want to talk about in your essays a little bit. So to make sure that, you know, you're not, we don't want to think that, oh, he or she is hiding something. Lay it out there. Maybe you had a bad freshman year. Maybe you were on the track team, and during the fall, it's just a really busy time for you. I mean, just let us know what was going on in your life at that time, and we can really use that information to assess your abilities to be successful at the graduate level. The last thing we want to do is to admit somebody who's not going to have a positive experience, because it can consume your life for those 2 years or those 5 years that you're in the program. And we want to have we want you to have that successful experience, and really looking at a GPA, as well as for some of our programs, the GRE can allow us to accurately assess that.
Right. Well, I was just going to add to that, Tim, that just as an audience of HKN student members, so they probably don't have any C's, but I love that. That's a really great comment, though, because it is important to bring out, you know, to confront it, be accountable. We look for that. And you know, I always joke with my engineers, you're real engineers, you know, you had a bad freshman year and the transition was there. But, you know, don't sweep it under the rug. I think taking it head on and addressing things that, if you were reviewing it, what questions would you have, types of things really makes a difference in those essays. Okay, what about you, Heath? How do you feel about GRE? What do your programs all require them or not?
Yeah, so actually this upcoming admission cycle, we've decided that we are going to make the GRE optional, due to coronavirus. And so you can submit the scores if you like, but you're not required to. We're actually looking at the College of Engineering at Michigan is looking at beyond this upcoming year and maybe making changes to our long-term GRE policy. There have been several studies that have suggested that GRE scores aren't necessarily indicative of being successful as a researcher. And so we're looking into that right now, this fall semester, actually. Not quite sure how that's going to play out, but at least for this upcoming cycle, it's going to be optional. For the GPA, I guess I'll get a little detailed about this. We have, PhD admissions and we have master's admissions. PhD admissions are handled, at least in our department, by individual faculty, and so we don't have necessarily an overall policy. It's whatever that faculty member, likes about your application. We do have a college requirement that if a GPA is below 3.5, that we have to get approval to admit that student to the PhD program. But that actually happens. There was a year or two ago, we had one student who actually had a 2-point-something GPA, was admitted to our PhD program because one of our professors saw him give a presentation at a conference, was really blown away by the work, and decided he really wanted to advise that student. So it is possible to get admitted without a stellar GPA. So once again, HKN, that's probably not a big issue, I would imagine it. For the master's, there's no official GPA threshold. It's more, but we're mainly interested there. We do have a committee that looks at that, and they're mainly looking at the courses you've taken in the area that you've applied to, the specific research area, how well you did in those courses. So, the main point there is to try to determine, if you enter our program, take our courses, our grad courses in a certain area, do you have the background to be successful? So that's not a really straightforward answer.
But you brought up some you brought up some really important things. Like one of the things I think that most students don't know is they think, when you apply to undergraduate, the faculty aren't really looking at these applications. It's an admissions team. And for graduate, especially for PhD and at Tufts, it's the faculty that'll be working with you and the department faculty that'll be, that are reviewing applications. So, that makes a big difference because you're being chosen by the faculty. And I think that, a lot of people don't understand that sometimes connecting with faculty before you even apply is an important thing. So thank you for bringing that up. Amy, how about at your institution?
Yeah, I'm going to mimic some of the things that others have said. So we are, we're completely test optional for GRE, even pre-COVID. But if you do have GRE scores, we will accept them and take them into consideration. Really with that and with GPA, we're looking, and we're at the master's level only, at a more holistic look at the application. So it's really important to us that you can be successful in the program. So we're going to look at everything from the types of internships you had, the recommendation letters that you get, some other things that I'm sure we'll touch on in this panel. But it's more of a holistic look. There's no straight, you're definitely not getting in because you have X GPA. But I would also say, I loved what Tim said about addressing it in your essay, your statement of purpose or whatever type of essay you're submitting for the application. That will go a long way. Just kind of owning whatever you had a bad semester because of X, I think really helps, again, while we're making that holistic approach to your reading your application, being able to make that decision with all the information.
Thank you. All right, Alex, how about you?
So yeah, so WPI does have a GREs, but it's there's no minimum score, and then in some programs they actually, if you come from an accredited undergraduate program and you have a GPA of 3.0, then it's you can waive that. So, and then in terms of GPA, again, like the minimum is 3, and but usually what happens is depending on what you're applying for. So if it's like, let's say, a PhD degree, like how well you perform on a GRE or your GPA is not as important as, let's say, how many publications you've published, or have you, like, what sort of research have you done? Because I think those are, like, again, I think Karen, you mentioned it like precisely at the undergraduate level. Where you have, let's say, this building on campus that handles all the undergraduate admissions applications and such. That's one thing, and there are test scores and there are other factors that go into the admission or decisions there. But at the graduate level, it's all faculty driven, right? And goes to a faculty committee, which I've been on for several years. And just like what Heath mentioned, there are 2 groups of applications. Like for the PhD, it's almost individual. Like you look, and so I think that's going to be kind of the determining factor there. For a master's, that also gets subdivided. Are you a master's applicant interested in doing a thesis, or one that's interested in doing a project, or just a course-based master's? And again, I think those are factors that kind of, the committee would look at, because the thesis master's, obviously, again, is like there's some interest in doing research, maybe continuing on to a PhD, and then the course-based master's, again, like there's going to, we look at the applications, we look at the recommendation letters and the like, but yeah, like I think there are those things like the GREs and GPAs, in order to just, like, I think there are recommended on our website, like sort of like what are we looking at in terms of not official, but these are kind of like the average minimums what we've been looking at in terms of applicants applying to WPI.
Okay, now, Alex, you just brought up something else. You mentioned, a thesis versus a project versus courses. Yep. But they all. So in my institution, one of the questions we got from the audience is, what's the difference between a Master's of Science and Master's in Engineering? So at Tufts, we used to have the difference that if you did a thesis, you got a MS. If you didn't do a thesis, you did a project, you got a Master of Engineering. We got rid of all that, and now even whether you do a thesis, a project, all course-based, you get a Master's of Science in Engineering. So at WPI, do you have distinctions?
So we do have an MS and an MEng, but it's a different meaning. So MS is for thesis or project or course-based masters, and MEng actually, because the Master of Science, you're like, there's some flexibility. You have, I believe, up to 9 credits. That's about 3 grad courses worth of flexibility to take non-electrical and computer engineering courses. So you can take physics courses, you can take computer science courses, mechanical engineering classes, but you can't take business classes. So WPI has a relatively large business school. Well, not large, but for our size, like we have a business school, like for a small polytechnic in central Massachusetts. But the MEng was created, actually when I was the chair of the Department Graduate Program Committee, we created the MEng because it does give an allowance to take several credits worth of business courses. So let's say you want to do organizational behavior or project management, you can take that, which the MS does not allow. And so several students actually take that because their professional development is, I want to get an advanced degree, but I also have this vision that I want to actually manage technical teams, not just build things.
Right. Oh, thank you for that. So at Tufts, we changed all of the Masters of Science programs so that now they can take up to 3 or 4 courses in engineering management and still get an MS degree. So we got rid of the MEng and essentially left it up to them. How about we're going in reverse order now. Amy, how about you? Do you have an MS MEng at your school?
So the only MEng we have is in civil engineering, and we are launching an MS in civil engineering, and it will be the same type of breakdown. So the MS, you would do a thesis, the MEng is more applied. But all of our other programs in engineering are MS programs, and you have the option of doing either thesis or non-thesis.
Okay. Heath, how about at Michigan?
Yeah, so we actually do have a Master's of Science and a Master's of Engineering. The Masters of Engineering is actually brand new. We started it for the first time this fall. And right now, the only real difference is they're both course-based. The main difference is that the MEng has slightly fewer credit requirements than the MS, and the MEng is very focused on specific concentrations. But anyway, you can, MS is typically takes about 2 years. MEng, we anticipate will take about maybe 3 semesters and a summer.
Okay.
As I mentioned, they're both course-based right now. The thought is as the MEng, as we add more concentration, the MS will start to gravitate more towards a research type degree, but that's sort of the long-term plan.
Right. And I think that's important for students to know because, for instance, in my department, you know, if you go into electrical engineering, you want an MS and you want to do project-based, you get an MS. But if you want to go into biomedical or chemical engineering, even if you're not doing, you're doing the MS degree, those departments are inherently want you to do research. So it's interesting, you know, you want to make sure that when you're selecting a program, you understand the departments may vary across an institution as well. What about you, Tim? What's going on at your institution with regards to Masters of Engineering, Masters of Science?
Yeah, I think very similar to everybody else, actually. The Master of Science we offer in all of our programs, and that's the thesis-based traditional master's degree. But then we also have a Master of Engineering that is all coursework with a project at the end. And that one, like Alex, I believe, does incorporate some business courses, some engineering management courses in it as well. So really, we have both options that are available.
That's terrific. So one of the things that some of the questions we're getting is, you know, how does industry view the ME versus the MS? And I think that, you know, sometimes industry needs to be a little bit educated on the difference because they'll say, well, you know, is one worth more than the other? And sometimes I've noticed companies will reimburse. They have tuition reimbursement programs, and sometimes they might have approved programs. So, you know, that's something that people also, if you're going to have your company pay for it, that's something you want to make sure, you know, that you're going to pursue a program that you can get reimbursed for. That really makes a difference. The other question that's coming up is, you know, for all the panelists, are your programs doable while you're working a full-time job? So, you know, in other words, doing them part-time. So at Tufts, yes, they are. And actually, even though as bad as COVID has been, my university never had online remote courses before. Now everything in my graduate programs are available remote, in person, or what we call hybrid. You can select which way you like to do it. So sticking with Tim, go ahead. Tim, do you have part-time programs?
Yes, we do have part-time programs, and they're really across the board. Some of our programs have been very flexible and offer evening and online. Some are a little bit less flexible, but they do offer courses that start at 3 in the afternoon. So it's still doable. You know, the work would need to approve leaving maybe an hour early 1 day a week to come in and take classes. But the majority of our classes, and I think, like Karen, you said, COVID has, you know, it's been a blessing and a curse a little bit. It's been a blessing because engineering has now been forced to go online a little bit, and so now they're just keeping those courses available and teaching in that way too.
Okay. And what about you, Heath?
Yes, so historically, the grad program at Michigan, we did not offer evening courses and did not offer too many online courses, but we did have one online program. So unless you live nearby, it was a little tricky to work and get your degree at the same time. You know, COVID has changed a few things, and actually even before coronavirus, the College of Engineering created what's called Nexus, which is a department meant to help produce online course offerings. So we had started doing that before coronavirus, and now that it's hit, we've accelerated that quite a bit. So pretty much all our courses are available online. As to what happens when things get back to normal, I don't quite know exactly what's going to happen. Will we still be offering the online courses? This is a conversation we're still having. Yeah, we don't quite know.
Well, I'm the dean at Tufts, so what I'm doing is I'm committing to it so that if my faculty says no, I'm saying, sorry, we're already committed to it. Then again, you never know. But I think the flexibility is becoming, more important. What about you, Amy?
Yeah, so it's a mix for us. Everything right now pretty much is online. But we had online programs before. Everything you can do either full-time or part-time, not always in the evening, as someone else noted. But I think in the future, we'll definitely be leaning towards the online, but also I've noticed a lot of students prefer a hybrid model, even if they're going full-time, having kind of the best of both worlds where they can come to class maybe once a week and meet their professor and have that, networking experience of being in class. So I think we may see more of a hybrid format moving forward, even with full-time and part-time.
Right. And I think in some of your programs, the big thing is, do you have co-ops for graduate students? I know, you're, WPI's like invented a co-op, and I'm just wondering if you have co-op, Wentworth?
Yeah, so our undergraduate programs have excellent co-ops. We're working on co-ops for graduate programs, but we do not, I can't guarantee that yet.
Okay, because I'm working on that at Tufts as well, because I think it's an important thing that the students that want to get work experience get that opportunity, but they also have to understand that it's going to push out their graduation if they're just in a hurry to get the degree and go. And Alex, want to talk about WPI?
Sure. So with WPI, we used to have before this pandemic, we would have both in-person classes, right? And then we would also have online offerings as well. So we have a separate organization that recently got merged under the it's been under the provost through a weird sort of org chart, but now it's more closely aligned with it, called corporate and professional education, like other places would be continuing ed. And they ran an extensive array of online part-time degree programs that were like, it's not a separate degree. It's not like, oh, this is the Masters of Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering STAR, that was the online, through them, and this is the one on campus. It's all the same thing, held to the same standard. And so we've been running this for, quite a little while. I think with respect to now with the pandemic, what WPI has assumed the position is undergraduate classes are hybrid. So you have the option of joining in online, or you could attend class physically. All grad courses are all online. But we've been doing this for years. So we would have faculty that would either teach online as well as what we would do is it's kind of difficult to have, let's say, a webcam pointing down on the professor while they teach, and also have live students, because there's a lot of latency in that type of system. So what we would do is literally there would be a section of, let's say, ECE 502 being taught by another instructor, but it would be very much friendly towards folks that are doing online. Also part-time is our program's very flexible with that. Not only for masters, but even PhDs. We have quite a few people who work in a company, because the Boston area is a high-tech hub. So there's tons of people. They're all trying to go do a graduate degree. They might be already in a management position with 5 direct reports and running several projects. And then, oh, by the way, I also need to do my master's degree or doing a PhD degree. And the nice thing is also a lot of these companies, especially in the ECE world, are more and more supporting these financially, maybe 1 or 2, or even the entire degree from end to end. Of course, there's always strings attached. You usually have to work a comparable amount of time afterwards in order to repay that company. They don't want you to get your degree and say, I'm going to your competitor, right? So
I did my master's and my PhD while I worked full time, and
wow.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. I mean, it wasn't easy because back then, 1,000 years ago, it really wasn't. There was no remote access. But the interesting thing that you mentioned was, my company paid for it, the entire thing. But my company went under when, it was no longer in business, so I didn't have to worry about a commitment back to them. So they went out of business the year I graduated. So unless you plan on, doing that. But a lot of companies are doing that now, and that's a great option. So we have a question from the audience talking about what is the process to find a researcher advisor, and what are the risks of not finding a research advisor. So my advice is usually I tell students when you take a class with someone, like when students apply to Tufts and they say, well, I don't know if I want to do a thesis or not, I usually say, well, try out the classes, see who you connect with, what kind of faculty. This is for the master's program. See who you connect with, what kind of topics you're interested in, and then reach out to the faculty and build a rapport. If you're applying for a PhD, IEEE conferences, are really key, because if you can talk to them after they give a presentation or you actually have a focus, it makes a big difference. Once you get to the institution, you have to be, it's graduate school now. They're not going to hold your hand. We want you to craft your own pathway. So, while somebody might say, I'm really looking for researchers or people to join my team, you need to also take the initiative to say, I'm interested in machine learning and image processing. Who does this? Who do I connect to? And step out there and make that contact. And usually faculty will respond. So I'll start with Tim. Tim, you want to talk about how matching with a research advisor works at your institution?
Absolutely. You don't have to have a research advisor selected before you even apply. It's a plus if you do, but if you don't, that's perfectly fine. But I do think it's important during the application process to reach out to those professors that you might be interested in working with, so that when they do see your application, they can put your name with the resume and with the application. Our website is fairly intuitive. You can look at the engineering website and see who's doing what research and reach out to those professors and introduce yourself. Submit a resume when you email them, and you'd be surprised at how many will respond back if they see a good match with your experience. But at Marquette, it's not important to reach out and have one secured by the time you apply. That can happen well after you've been admitted.
And Heath?
Yeah, so, making that connection is a little tricky. So at least at Michigan, we get a lot of emails from students who are interested in our graduate program, and to the point where many of our faculty will put on their website, they'll just say, something like, I don't respond to emails from students. Please submit your application and you'll be considered at that point. And many of our faculty prefer to wait until they see the application. That said, I don't necessarily want to discourage you from reaching out to faculty through email. Just don't be too disheartened if you don't hear back. Like I said, it's just not too many faculty will.
Well, Heath, I want to add to that, when I get an email that says, "Dear Mr. Panetta, I'm interested in your research in nuclear physics," I mean, that's an immediate, I actually now, because I want to mentor them, I write back and I'm like, you know what, I'm responding to you because if you're sending this out, these spam emails out, you're not going to get a response and you're not going to be successful. I would rather see a student who chooses wisely and thoughtfully where they really want to go and the faculty they want to work with. And, and that's one thing. But the other thing I think is really important here is faculty, I think somebody mentioned it, that they saw a student at a conference